I was perusing some old files the other day when I stumbled across video footage that I didn't realize I'd recorded. Believe it or not, I actually documented my first interaction with Zhongli. I know, right? I was surprised too. Almost 2 years ago to the day, I created a second Genshin account. Why? Good question. I was actually experimenting with a video idea that didn't pan out. I ultimately abandoned the account, but that's neither here nor there. The point is, I recorded Zhongli gameplay before he joined my team. It was like unearthing a fossil, discovering a new planet. Finding Bigfoot? I don't know. It was an amazing find. Well, at least for a few seconds before I started cringing at my awful gameplay. I clearly had no idea how to use the Geo Archon. Like I said in a previous video, I didn't even realize Zhongli had a shield until I'd been playing him for a while. This newfound footage also made me realize that they clearly made some changes to the character. I don't recall seeing those little icons around him. Interesting. I wonder what those icons did. I know the Geo Archon has undergone some changes since his initial release, but I digress. The reason I was perusing old files is because I was considering revisiting my alt account. This is something that's crossed my mind from time to time over the past couple years. But the thought of starting over was overwhelming, and the more time that passed, the more daunting the idea became. Then Cloud Retainer was released. Being familiar with this character, I eagerly started her story quest. Right out of the gate, Paimon asked a question that stuck with me.
Do you still remember the first time we came here? We even brought offerings and everything. And when we told her that Rex Lapis had been assassinated, she immediately threatened to squash Liyue Harbor. Paimon thought she'd be impossible to get along with. But now that we've spent some more time together, she's really not like that at all.
I actually didn't remember meeting Cloud Retainer or her reaction to the assassination of Rex Lapis. That's when I decided to jump back into my alt account and start over. It's odd returning to the beginning of the story after so long. Memories I'd long forgotten started flooding back. I initially thought that both travelers were female. I was a little disappointed, but decided to go with the sister, with the long braid. It wasn't until he started speaking that I realized he was male. Needless to say, I had to change his name. I cycled between a few different names before settling on the current one. I didn't know anything about Genshin before jumping into it, save for a few seconds of gameplay. I remember people saying that it was a Breath of the Wild wannabe. I didn't know anything about Breath of the Wild, so that didn't mean anything to me. I didn't play video games in my teens. I was more focused on art and literature. I don't remember what I thought of Amber, other than she seemed kind of young to have such an important job. However, I definitely remember my first impressions of Kaya. I liked his character design and his voice. I remember thinking, he has such pretty eyes. It's a shame that one of them is covered up. Dvalin? Storm Terror? Now that brings back memories, painful memories. In the beginning, each challenge left me frustrated and discouraged. Dvalin was no exception. In fact, he was the beginning of the end. If I could turn back time, I definitely would have utilized YouTube sooner. The reason I took that 6-month hiatus was out of frustration. I remember being so lost navigating the menu, not to mention Catherine, cooking, crafting, and domains I hardly knew which way was up. At the time, I'd only played a handful of games and none of them had a leveling system, so I paid very little to no attention to that aspect of Genshin. Honestly, I was primarily interested in exploring the world, which at the time was just Mondstadt and Liyue. Once I'd explored them both, there was nothing left for me. I often wonder what my experience would have been like if I'd not been so stubborn and watched a how-to video back in the day. Perhaps the Golden House wouldn't have been such a grind, thus leading to such resentment for Tartaglia. Returning to the Golden House now, I was actually nervous, but with my characters properly leveled up, it was a breeze. Compared to my first experience, it was like night and day. In my defense, I'd never played a game like Genshin Impact before. Up to that point, my primary gaming experience was limited to Detroit Become Human, Uncharted 4, and Red Dead Redemption 2. Very different games. But perhaps it's all for the best. I'm enjoying this second playthrough. Using what I've learned, moving through the story has been incredibly easy. Better still, having re-experienced the story, I feel I'm better prepared for the next leg of the journey.
I suggest that you fully prepare yourself before going to Natlan. In the meantime, Fontaine's doors will always be open to you.
Thanks for watching.